Right now, you might be wearing shoes that contain actual satanic symbols, occult imagery, or connections to figures who openly worship darkness, and you have no idea. The enemy has been so cunning that he's turned everyday footwear into spiritual warfare, hiding pentagrams, Masonic symbols, and demonic influences in brands that millions of Christians wear daily without realizing they're making covenants with evil forces. What's on your feet right now could be connecting you to witchcraft rituals, secret societies, or companies that literally put human blood in their products to mock Christ. The Bible warns in Ephesians 6:11 to put on the whole armor of God, yet believers are unknowingly putting Satan's armor on their feet every single morning. Today, we're exposing 5 shoe brands that appear completely harmless, but are pushing dangerous spiritual influences through symbols, collaborations, and connections designed to corrupt your walk with God. From brands that literally created Satan worship shoes to those hiding Masonic symbols in plain sight, from companies promoting spiritual chaos to luxury brands favored by corrupt pastors who steal from their congregations. The final brand will shock you because it's become the favorite choice of prosperity preachers who live in luxury while their people struggle financially. Subscribe to this channel, hit like, and comment the country you're watching from so we can see how global this spiritual deception has become through the fashion industry. Share this with Christian families who need this warning before they unknowingly support brands that oppose everything we stand for as believers. Let's start with MSCHF and their literal collaboration with Satan worship that shocked the world. MSCHF is a Brooklyn-based art collective that markets itself as a creative company pushing boundaries through controversial products. Founded in 2016, this brand has gained massive attention among young people by creating limited edition items that appear edgy and artistic. At first glance, their approach seems like harmless creative expression. But here's the red flag that should alarm every believer. This company deliberately crossed into open satanic symbolism when they collaborated with rapper Lil Nas X to create the infamous Satan shoes. They weren't just making a fashion statement. They were creating literal altars of darkness for people to wear on their feet. The Bible warns in Ephesians 6:11 to put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. Yet this brand encourages you to literally put Satan's imagery on your feet. The Satan Shoes collaboration revealed the true spiritual agenda behind this company's operations. These modified Nike Air Max 97s contained actual human blood. In the sole were limited to 666 pairs and featured pentagrams with biblical references to Satan's fall from heaven. This wasn't subtle symbolism, this was open worship of Satan packaged as trendy footwear. Each shoe contained a drop of human blood mixed into the ink, turning every step into a blood covenant with demonic forces. The number 6666 is explicitly mentioned in Revelation 13:18 as the number of the beast, yet they proudly use this as their production limit. When you purchase these products, you're entering agreement with a company that openly mocks Christ and celebrates Lucifer. What's more concerning is how they target young people, particularly LGBTQ+ and hip-hop communities, with satanic messaging disguised as empowerment. The Satan shoes were released alongside Lil Nas X's Montero video, depicting him giving Satan a lap dance, imagery contradicting everything Jesus taught about holiness. MSCHF normalizes satanic worship among impressionable youth by making it trendy and desirable. The Bible warns in Matthew 18:6 about causing little ones to stumble, yet this company makes Satan worship fashionable. They've turned demonic symbolism into viral marketing, knowing controversy sells, and young people will defend their right to wear whatever they want. MSTH encrypted TBN3.G static, COMS images, QTBN, and 9GCR6HVN4J CS9CBC5VCS access 9PM-X5 VESID 9PK of PY, FLU W1 RCFV YHNTTX QGR NFD VF NMGF operates under a business model promoting impulse, materialism, and worship of limited edition culture, spirits opposing biblical contentment. They create artificial scarcity, causing people to act in desperation and greed, feeding the spirit of covetousness condemned in Exodus 20:17. Their marketing turns consumers into obsessive followers who prioritize possessions over spiritual growth. The Bible declares in Isaiah 5:20, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil." Yet MSCHF presents darkness as enlightenment. Any Christian supporting their products funds an operation designed to mock Christ and celebrate Satan. But if you found that shocking, what we're about to reveal next about a brand hiding occult symbols in plain sight for decades will open your eyes even more. Converse, particularly the iconic Chuck Taylor All-Stars, has been worn by generations of young people and is often seen as a harmless, retro fashion choice. Founded in 1908, this brand built its reputation in basketball before becoming synonymous with counterculture movements, rock music, and youth rebellion. The shoes appear innocent enough, simple canvas sneakers that seem to represent authenticity and non-conformity in a world of flashy athletic brands. Many parents buy these shoes for their children, thinking they're making a safe, classic choice that avoids the materialism of expensive sneakers. But look closely at the ankle of these shoes, and you'll see something that should alarm every believer. A five-pointed star that isn't just any star, it's a pentagram. This symbol has been used for centuries in witchcraft, satanic rituals, and occult practices as a gateway for summoning demonic spirits. The pentagram on Converse shoes isn't the Star of David, and it's certainly not the star that led the wise men to Jesus. It's one of the most widely recognized symbols in satanic worship and occult rituals. In witchcraft and Satanism, the pentagram represents the five elements and is used to invoke demonic powers during rituals and ceremonies. When the pentagram points upward, occultists believe it represents the triumph of spirit over matter, but when inverted, it explicitly represents Satan and is called the Egot of Mendes. The pentagram has been documented in countless occult texts as a symbol of protection for witches and a beacon for demonic entities. Deuteronomy 7:26 warns, "Do not bring anything detestable into your house, or you will be destroyed like it." Yet parents unknowingly bring these symbols into their homes and place them on their children's feet. You have essentially turned your child into a walking advertisement for the occult, signaling to spiritual forces of darkness that they are open for business. This brand has been associated for decades with counterculture, rebellion, and rock music scenes that were openly hostile to Christianity and biblical values. The connection isn't coincidental. There's a spirit of rebellion and disorder that has always been attached to this brand, whispering to young hearts to reject authority and question everything sacred. It feeds the natural angst and confusion of youth, making them fertile ground for demonic influence through music, ideologies, and worldviews that oppose Christ. The pentagram serves as a spiritual beacon, signaling to forces of darkness that the wearer is in agreement with rebellion against God's order. Many young people who start wearing these shoes find themselves drawn to darker music, Gothic ideologies, and anti-Christian philosophies without understanding the spiritual connection. Jesus gave a terrifying warning in Matthew 18:6 about causing little ones to stumble, saying it would be better to have a millstone hung around your neck and be drowned in the sea. Every time someone laces up those shoes, they are unknowingly renewing a covenant with the spirit behind the pentagram, a symbol that represents everything opposite to the cross of Christ. You wonder why your teenager suddenly becomes defiant, drawn to dark music, or interested in occult practices. Check what symbols they're wearing on their feet daily. The enemy is cunning enough to hide his marks in plain sight, making them seem like innocent fashion choices while they serve as spiritual doorways. The Bible commands in 1 Thessalonians 5:22 to abstain from every form of evil, yet these shoes display one of the most recognized evil symbols in human history. You cannot adorn yourself with the emblems of Satan and expect the blessings of God. Spiritual warfare doesn't work that way. But what we're about to expose next takes the deception even deeper, because the next brand uses a pattern that connects directly to secret societies and their hidden agendas. Vans was founded in 1966 in California and built its reputation in skateboarding culture with their slogan, "Off the Wall," a phrase that sounds edgy and creative but carries a much darker spiritual meaning. To be off the wall means to be outside of divine structure, uncontained by godly boundaries, and living in a state of spiritual chaos and disorder. This is completely contrary to God's nature, as the Apostle Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 14:33 that God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. The spirit behind this brand celebrates lawlessness and rebellion against all forms of authority, whether parental, governmental, or divine. When you wear these shoes, you're making an agreement with a mindset that despises order, structure, and submission to God's design for your life. The brand has always been associated with counterculture movements that define themselves by opposition to traditional values and biblical principles. Look closely at Vans' most iconic design element, the black and white checkerboard pattern that appears on many of their shoes and has become synonymous with the brand. While most people see this as just a trendy design, this checkerboard pattern carries deep significance in Freemasonry and secret societies that operate in opposition to biblical Christianity. The black and white checkered floor is a fundamental element found in every Masonic lodge around the world, representing the duality of good and evil, light and darkness. In Masonic symbolism, this pattern represents the balance between opposing forces and the acceptance of both righteousness and wickedness as necessary parts of existence. This directly contradicts biblical teaching that calls us to choose light over darkness and good over evil. When you wear this pattern on your feet, you're walking on the same symbolic foundation used in Masonic temples, where oaths are taken that often conflict with Christian beliefs. The checkerboard pattern isn't just coincidental design. It represents a spirit of compromise and mixture that Jesus himself condemned in the Church of Laodicea. In Revelation 3:16, Jesus said, "So, then because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will vomit you out of my mouth." This pattern represents the dangerous middle ground where believers begin to tolerate things they once rejected, where convictions become blurry and spiritual discernment becomes clouded. It's the spirit that makes you unable to distinguish between what is of God and what is of the world, because you're literally walking on a pattern of compromise daily. The black and white squares represent the mixing of holiness with worldliness, purity with corruption, truth with deception. When you consistently expose yourself to this symbolism, it begins to affect your spiritual perception, making you more accepting of things that should be rejected and more tolerant of sins that should be confronted. This brand is deeply rooted in skateboarding, punk, and alternative subcultures that have historically defined themselves by their opposition to mainstream values, tradition, and often faith itself. The skateboarding culture that Vans represents isn't just about the sport, it's about a lifestyle that glorifies risk-taking without consequence, rebellion without accountability, and freedom without responsibility. It feeds a desire to break free from all constraints, but the freedom it offers isn't the freedom of the spirit found in obedience to Christ. It's the freedom of the flesh that leads to spiritual bondage. You find yourself becoming restless with routine, struggling with commitment, and resisting the structure that God uses to bring growth and maturity in your life. The off-the-wall mentality makes you want to be a free spirit, but you're actually becoming a servant to chaos and confusion, unable to find peace in God's perfect order and design. Vans may market themselves as promoting creativity and individual expression, but the spiritual reality is that they're promoting a lifestyle of lawlessness disguised as freedom. The checkerboard pattern you wear connects you to the same symbolic system used in secret societies that operate in darkness, while the off-the-wall philosophy trains your mind to reject the divine order that God established for your protection and blessing. When you choose to wear these symbols daily, you're not just making a fashion statement, you're training your spirit to accept compromise and reject the boundaries that God has set for your spiritual safety. The Bible warns in Proverbs 25:28 that whoever has no rule over his own spirit is like a city broken down without walls. This brand celebrates the broken down spiritual state where anything goes and nothing is sacred. But if you think a checkerboard pattern is concerning, wait until you hear about the next brand, because it's connected to one of the most controversial figures in modern culture, whose spiritual journey has shocked the world. Yeezy is the shoe brand created by Kanye West, one of the most influential and controversial figures in modern entertainment and fashion. Launched in collaboration with Adidas, Yeezy shoes became a cultural phenomenon, with people camping outside stores and paying thousands of dollars for limited releases. At first glance, these shoes seem like premium athletic wear, representing success and artistic achievement in hip-hop culture. The brand built its reputation on exclusivity, innovation, and Kanye's celebrity status as a musical genius and fashion visionary. Many Christians have worn these shoes as a symbol of making it, of achieving success, or simply because they admired Kanye's musical talents. But here's what every believer needs to understand. When you wear Yeezy, you're not just wearing shoes designed by a rapper. You're associating yourself with a man who has made increasingly disturbing statements about Satan, Hitler, and anti-Semitism. The spiritual implications of supporting someone who openly praises evil cannot be ignored by any serious Christian. Kanye West's spiritual journey has been a public roller coaster that should alarm anyone considering his brand. After claiming to be born again and releasing Christian music, Kanye shocked the world with statements like, "I can say anti-Semitic things and Adidas can't drop me," and expressing admiration for Adolf Hitler. In interviews, he's praised Satan, made blasphemous comments about Jesus, and promoted conspiracy theories rooted in hatred and division. This isn't just controversial artistic expression. These are the words of a man whose heart appears to have turned away from the light he once claimed to follow. Proverbs 27:19 tells us that, as in water face reflects face, so a man's heart reveals the man. And Kanye's words reveal a heart that has embraced darkness. When you purchase Yeezy products, you're financially supporting someone whose public statements promote anti-Semitism, Satan worship, and hatred, values completely opposed to biblical Christianity. The Bible commands us in Ephesians 5:11 to have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. The dangerous part about Yeezy is how it represents the idolatry of celebrity culture that has infected the church and Christian communities. Many believers have elevated Kanye to almost prophet-like status, defending his every word and action because they admire his talent or were encouraged by his brief Christian phase. This is exactly the kind of celebrity worship that the Bible warns against, placing human figures on pedestals and following them regardless of their spiritual fruit. Isaiah 2:22 warns, "Stop trusting in mere humans who have but a breath in their nostrils. Why hold them in esteem?" When you wear Yeezy, you're participating in the cult of personality that surrounds Kanye, sending a message that his influence and brand matter more than his spiritual condition or the harmful ideologies he promotes. This celebrity idolatry has led many young Christians to compromise their values, excuse evil behavior, and prioritize fame over faithfulness to biblical principles. Beyond Kanye's personal controversies, the Yeezy brand operates on the same principles of artificial scarcity, materialism, and status worship that oppose biblical contentment and stewardship. The brand creates intense desire through limited releases, causing people to act desperately and irrationally to obtain shoes that often retail for $200 but resell for thousands. This feeds the spirit of covetousness and pride, making people feel superior based on what they can afford to wear on their feet. The entire Yeezy culture promotes the love of money and status symbols that 1 Timothy 6:10 identifies as the root of all kinds of evil. People take on debt, neglect financial responsibilities, and prioritize material possessions over spiritual growth just to own a pair of shoes. The brand has turned footwear into a form of worship, where people's identity and worth become tied to what limited edition sneakers they can acquire. This is the same spirit of materialism that Jesus warned about in Matthew 6:24, when he said, "You cannot serve both God and money." Yeezy represents everything wrong with celebrity culture, materialism, and the dangerous practice of supporting people whose spiritual fruit contradicts biblical values. When you wear these shoes, you're not just making a fashion choice, you're making a statement about what voices you choose to amplify and what values you're willing to compromise for the sake of trends. The Bible calls us to be wise about who we follow and what we support with our finances. Yet many Christians continue to fund the empire of a man whose recent statements promote hatred and darkness. Your money becomes a vote for his platform. Your wearing of his brand becomes an endorsement of his influence, and your support enables him to spread ideologies that harm both individuals and communities. But if you think supporting a controversial celebrity is problematic, what we're about to reveal next about the final brand will show you how deeply corruption has penetrated even the highest levels of church leadership through luxury fashion choices. Balenciaga represents the pinnacle of luxury fashion, with shoes and clothing that cost thousands of dollars and are marketed to the wealthy elite who want to display their financial status. Founded in Spain in 1919, this brand has evolved into a symbol of high-end fashion that attracts celebrities, influencers, and those who want to be seen as sophisticated and successful. The brand markets itself as cutting-edge, artistic, and exclusive, appealing to people who want to separate themselves from common fashion and demonstrate their refined taste and financial capability. At first glance, Balenciaga appears to be simply expensive fashion for those who can afford luxury, but the spiritual reality behind this brand is far more disturbing. This isn't just about overpriced shoes. This is about a company that has embraced darkness, perversion, and the corruption of innocence as part of their brand identity. The spirit operating behind Balenciaga is a mixture of Jezebel and Mammon, combining sexual perversion with the worship of money and status. Balenciaga has become notorious for marketing campaigns that are deeply disturbing and hint at the exploitation of children and the normalization of bizarre, demonic imagery. Their advertising has featured children holding teddy bears in bondage gear, documents referencing child exploitation cases, and imagery that any parent should find alarming and inappropriate. This isn't accidental or artistic expression. This is intentional programming designed to normalize perversion and desensitize society to the exploitation of innocence. The company has repeatedly pushed boundaries with campaigns that seem designed to corrupt minds and celebrate what the Bible calls abomination. Isaiah 5:20 warns, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness." Yet this is exactly what Balenciaga does through their marketing. When you desire or purchase their products, you're not just buying expensive fashion, you're financially supporting a company that promotes an agenda of corruption and perversion. You're making a covenant with spirits that seek to destroy innocence and mock everything pure and holy. What makes Balenciaga even more dangerous in the church context is that it has become the preferred brand of many prosperity preachers and pastors who live lavishly while their congregations struggle financially. These are the same pastors who preach about God's blessings while wearing $2,000 Balenciaga sneakers purchased with tithes and offerings from hard-working believers. It's become a status symbol among corrupt church leaders who want to display their wealth and sophistication, showing the world that they've made it spiritually and financially. This represents the worst kind of spiritual pride and abuse of pastoral authority, where leaders use their position to fund luxury lifestyles that mock the sacrifice of their congregations. Jesus said in Matthew 23:5 that the Pharisees do all their works to be seen by men, and these pastors wearing Balenciaga are doing exactly that, performing religion for recognition while living like kings. When pastors wear brands associated with corruption and perversion, they're sending a message about what they really value and worship. The spirit of elitism that Balenciaga represents creates separation and pride that is completely contrary to the unity and humility that should characterize the body of Christ. When church leaders wear $3,000 shoes while preaching to people who struggle to pay rent, they're demonstrating the same spirit that Jesus condemned in the religious leaders of his day. This brand feeds the lie that your spiritual success can be measured by your material possessions, that God's favor is displayed through luxury goods, and that pastors deserve to live like celebrities while their people live like servants. It's the prosperity gospel taken to its logical extreme, where spiritual authority becomes a pathway to personal wealth and status. The Bible warns in 1 Timothy 6:5 about those who suppose godliness is a means of gain. Yet these pastors use their pulpits to fund lifestyles that would make worldly celebrities jealous. They've turned the gospel into a business model and the church into their personal ATM, using sacred offerings to purchase brands that promote everything Christianity opposes. Balenciaga represents the convergence of multiple evils: the worship of money, the promotion of perversion, and the abuse of spiritual authority for personal gain. When pastors choose to wear brands associated with the corruption of children and the celebration of darkness, they're making a statement about their spiritual condition and their true allegiances. This brand has become a litmus test for pastoral integrity. Any shepherd who spends thousands on shoes while his flock struggles financially has revealed where his heart truly lies. The Bible declares in Matthew 6:21 that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And pastors who treasure Balenciaga more than their people's welfare have hearts aligned with mammon rather than Christ. Any believer who supports, desires, or purchases from this brand is participating in an economy of corruption that funds the very agenda seeking to destroy biblical values and exploit the innocent. The price isn't just financial, it's your spiritual purity, your testimony, and your participation in the kingdom of darkness disguised as high fashion. These 5 shoe brands may appear like innocent fashion choices, but they represent altars of darkness designed to corrupt your spiritual walk and lead you into covenant with evil forces. The Bible warns in Matthew 7:15, "Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves." And these brands are exactly that. Wolves in sheep's clothing, hiding demonic symbols and corrupt influences behind trendy designs and celebrity endorsements. That's why knowing the Word of God and understanding spiritual warfare is crucial, so you won't be deceived by companies that package darkness as fashion and evil as artistic expression. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these shoe brands shocked you the most? Comment below, along with the country you're watching from. We want to see how many nations God is using to expose these deceptions and wake up his people worldwide. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share it with your friends, family, and church members who need this truth before they unknowingly support brands that oppose everything we believe as Christians. If this video opened your eyes to the spiritual warfare happening through everyday items, make sure to click on the video appearing on your screen right now for even more shocking revelations that every believer needs to know. May God give you wisdom to walk only in His light, protected from every form of deception that seeks to corrupt your path with Him.